Hi, everybody. This is day 1513 since, yeah, you've got that right. 1513 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered. I'm right there on Fort Bliss, and it was a code red. It was ordered. Ordered. Now, we've been doing this for a long time, and every day, and you can see the progression. You can see the investigation. You could see our breaking news. You could see our rallies. You could see our meetings. You could see, I mean, 4 years of doing this day in and day out because we knew, well, first of all, we weren't notified. And we called, and then they threw us out, and then they brought us back in, and then they said, "You're the investigators." And we have done everything to appease the criminal um, original breakaway group. At the beginning, it took like, I guess, a year and a half or whatever, and then the true colors started coming out. You know, you have this original response team, and they are just all so nice and everything, and they act like they're trying to help you, but really what they're trying to do is frame the narrative and manipulate and mislead you and lie to you and all of that, and then they realize that you're not, buying their false narrative because it makes no sense. you know I mean, the truth always comes out, and if what they're trying to tell you is lies, and it's not, they've made you the investigator. We're the investigators. They're trying to tell us what it all means, and it doesn't make sense. The evidence points to something totally different, and then they get angry. Then they get really angry, and then they start turning into, well, they've always been trolls, but then they start really retaliating against you, and then more witnesses come out, and then they really get scared. And we are, you know, as you see, things get a little bit crazier in the Walmart mass shooting case, which is the Patrick Crusius death sentence case, right? I mean, that's what it is. They're trying to get a death sentence for Patrick Crusius, right? And they're trying to push this false narrative out there about him. And it is a false narrative, absolutely a false narrative. They're trying to push this out there, and they're getting kind of crazy doing it. You see it ramping up of things that just don't make sense, right? The lies don't make sense. And after 5 years, because they've been working on that case for 5 years, and not really working on it, just trying to regurgitate this false narrative, and especially that this is, an election season. They're going to really try to get this false narrative out to El Paso, which is typically, uh, you know, uh, it votes a certain way, and they've always tried to manipulate the vote. But this is all politics. It's politics, because politics is how they make their money. It's how they get their contracts for doing what? Doing what? Right? Doing what? Providing equipment and weapons that they can traffic it, or, I mean, what have we gotten out of these trillions and trillions of dollars of contracts and everything like that? So it is really a game of theft. It's really like a chess game of theft. Who is going to be the theft master, right? Instead of the chess. That would be a really good meme, right? Who's going to be the theft master? Um, and it's and I know that that sounds like, what is this mother talking about? Um, and I know that 4 years ago I would have said the same thing, even 3 years ago, maybe, I don't know. 3 years ago, it was all starting to make sense how the CID and the FBI and the Department of Justice and the Department of State and on, and the 44 four-star generals and admirals are up to no good, have betrayed us, and have weaponized, abused their power and weaponized the tools that we have given them. They work for us, right? And they've weaponized it to pad their own pockets or against us or to serve a foreign and domestic enemy. That became very, very clear. And it sounds a little extreme, but there you have it. That's what's going on. And now you see um, this influx of, you got to get the language right. What do you call when you're bringing people in to your country? Um, and putting them in strategic locations. Don't forget these locations where they're housing, where they're putting these camps or whatever, are strategic. And of course, Fort Bliss is very strategic for the emergency intake center and the camps before them, right? Because before the latest emergency intake center that started in February of 2021, there were camps on Fort Bliss before then, and it's been very, very bad. Hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied. Who's protecting them, right? Who's helping them? Um, Children coming over and being used and abused, and now they're mostly dead. So, and that's not my words; those are the reports from many different sources. So I want to make sure that I'm on, and I want to talk about the judges tonight. Um, the judges are super important in all of this. And, when let me turn this down. There I can see everybody. Happy, happy Saturday, everybody. And um, if you don't go to church, I think it's a good time to start. It's a good time to start. If you want good, beautiful things in your life and you don't go to church, I think it's a good time to start. And one of, and this is just, I don't know, this is just off the hand. I just was inspired to say this just now. Um, you don't have to understand everything. You know, it's in our being that God is. And every argument ends with God is. Okay? You could be talking about oil, you could be talking about education, you could be talking about criminal trafficking, you could be talking about economics and the election, and every argument, when you just hash it out, it will end in God is. And I think that's a real simple explanation of why you don't need to have all the answers. You don't have to expect that all the people, not one of us is good, right? Not one. That when you go to church, you're not going to church with a bunch of angels, right? We know that. But you're going, most of the time, most of those going are trying to hit the bullseye. They might miss, yeah, they might miss, but they're trying. They're not um, rebels against God, hate against God, um, love for murder, love for um, using and abusing children, taking over positions so to become thieves, you know, just to take, to take, to take. Um, on purpose, on purpose. And I'm not saying that, well, yes, I am. In my experience, and so I can only speak to that. I'm only an expert on my own opinion, right? Um, but I think now is a good time to go to church, and not where there's so many opinions. And I think that's why I like a church that's full of sacraments. The Word of God, of course, because to me, the Holy Spirit is, but not limited to, every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God, the sacraments, and creation. And so when you have a church body that focuses on that, a very liturgical, systematic, uh, based on the Word of God, the sacraments, and creation, I think you can't go wrong. I think that's how you get the closest to God. And I have a sign in front of me. It says, "Come close to God, and He will come close to you." And I think at this time, be, it if you don't go to church, I think it's time to find yourself one and start going and start trying to hit the bullseye in your life, meaning to honor God in everything that you do. And you don't have to, you don't have to understand everything else. You just have to do it to clean up and try to hit that bullseye courageously as well as you can from wherever you're at. I honestly, because things are going to, for me, and what we're experiencing and what we're seeing, when the truth is out like it is, and you see the hearing that we just witnessed, and you read the articles that are coming out from it, and you know so much behind the scenes. I know who Stephanie Melendez is. I know who Morales is. And it is an indication that things are going to get, I don't have the right words. Is it desperate? Is it, you have them breaking the gag order. You have them connecting more dots to Richard's case. This is what's going on. If you want to know why the Walmart case is connected to Richard's case, and why Judge Medrano is connected to Richard's case, and Penny Hamilton is connected to Richard's case, and Judge Robert Shook is connected to Richard's case. Of course, that one's an easy one. And more and more. It is, and how they're connected, and what these judges, the appointed judges versus elected judges, and the difference, and what that means, and the ramifications, and what's going on in the justice system in El Paso, the weaponization, because we just and I'll post it up. We just put in a supplemental complaint against Judge Medrano, Sam Medrano, who is presiding over the Patrick Crusius death penalty case. That's what that is. And that's serious stuff. You better have your I's dotted and your T's crossed in a case where you're deciding if you're going to put someone to death. And you need to have the oversight to get as many as possible I's dotted and T's crossed. And what has happened in the case is that Penny Hamilton sealed the evidence, sealed it. So even Walmart, and I'm sure they have their own, but the CCTV footage, the witness statements, the forensics, the brown tip bullets, the green tip bullets, there's leaks, the weapons, and I was going to look at that Patrick Crusius weapon again and remind myself since I'm not so good at that, but because let me tell you, when Christopher Morales broke the gag order, our family was like, what? His mother was shot twice in the chest and lived? What? Well, that breaks the whole narrative. This is crazy. So we do have a circus. We know we've had a circus for a long time, haven't we? We've had a circus. We've had a delay. We had, it started with Jaime Esparza with John Briggs. Then it went to Yvonne Rosales with John Briggs. And then it went to Bill Hicks, the usurper, with John Briggs. And John Briggs, even when he was fired from the case, would not leave. He was insubordinate. So insubordinate that he even, and this is in his confession, this is his words, not mine, that he was deceptive. He just wanted to keep up appearances when he had the meeting, when Judge Medrano had a meeting for the Patrick Crusius death sentence case in his chambers. And he went there pretending that he was still representing the Patrick Crusius case for the DA's office. And he wasn't. He had been fired. He had been relieved. And yet he went and he even admitted in his confession that he deceived Yvonne Rosales what he was doing in the case. And, is Judge Medrano that clueless? Because we have absolutely wrote Judge Medrano on this, and that was not addressed in this hearing. Because that botches the case. And that's not the only thing. So he's allowing this misconduct by the prosecution. He's allowing Bill Hicks's misconduct, being a usurper. He's allowing, they're not even mentioning Justin Underwood right now. And absolutely, Judge Medrano knows the part that Justin Underwood played. He was really the illegal ad litem in the case. And they don't even mention that. Because we've pointed out he had no authority. He couldn't be an ad litem in the case. So Judge Medrano is allowing not only misconduct on the prosecution side, but also on the defense side. You see, you know, with the bully, Joe Spencer, he's known as the bully. He's, tampering in who can be the next district attorney, right? So that all came out in the open records. And then, of course, for a long time, this is not anything new. We just haven't shared it. But we've known about um, that there exist these audio recordings of Judge Madrano with backroom deals, and playing politics, offering to delay the proceedings in the Patrick Crusius death penalty Walmart mass shooting case. Um, and also uh, Joe Spencer saying, open up that wallet, or, make sure that wallet, or something like that. That's not a direct quote, but, the motive is the money. That was very quite clear. And these audios exist, and um, uh, there are media investigators or journalists that have these, and I don't know how long it's going to take for the media to bring them out. Um, but of course, it's part of the case too. Um, there is public records that you can get. You just have to be made aware of them. We are aware of them, and we didn't know how that would play a part in Richard's case, in our pursuit to get Richard's remains, because of Nadal Baim's testimony that Richard's remains were recovered and in Mexico, right? And of course, other information that we have that they just didn't want another Vanessa Guillen. They absolutely knew from the beginning that Richard had been murdered, and that explains why there was so much shaking and so much crying. There was crying. You had grown men in uniform crying, shaking very, very hard. Um, and we're like, what? What is going on? If Richard was a jerk, they wouldn't be shaking, they wouldn't be crying. But if he was a whistleblower that was murdered, um, and this whistleblowing activity is across the border criminal trafficking, um, that high officers are involved in, like Clem Coward, like Michael Xavier Garrett, um, and others, then, of course, it would make sense why they're shaking. But I think there's even more at play here, because you can hear a pin drop in these rooms when you ask about Richard. They are nervous, they are scared, and now you have this blatant disregard for due process in the Patrick Crusius case by parading Patrick Crusius around that courtroom while allowing the full media coverage and live streaming, right? The broadcasting of the parading, him around in this prison garb with, very badly put on a bulletproof vest, and of course being in chains. And um, yeah, you know, they're trying to frame a narrative, and the problem is, and we all know this, he absolutely has a connection um, to the Walmart shooting, right? He absolutely has a connection. And, it gets clearer and clearer when you do just a little bit of your own investigation that there's a lot not being told to us about the orchestration of the Walmart mass shooting, that there's clear evidence of it. Clear evidence that there's more than one shooter. Clear evidence that the Walmart mass shooting is not what we're told. It's something very different. And that's coming out clearly, when you have Melendez, don't forget the canine cop Melendez. If you want to know how these two cases are connected, you just go to Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia. Um, and she has a huge, huge role in all of this. Huge role. And she targeted our son and our family. And she has a huge role. Um, and, when you know the connections, which, some of it I'm not at liberty to say, um, but when you start knowing the connections, you know that they have done their best to try to fine tune this criminal network. There's a lot of people involved, and that includes the judges. And what do I mean about the judges? So let's do the appointed judges versus the elected judges. And very easily, and you can correct me where I'm wrong, but appointed judges, are necessary if you just have something specific, something small, right? Something small, and you need something judged. You need someone with some law behind them to be the arbiter, right? Or you got to establish the word of God. I mean, see, this is where I don't know if people understand it, but any good law is from God, right? Thou shalt not murder, or from um, even security measures are from biblical law. You can't just dig a hole in the middle of a road and leave it and maybe ruin a car or someone falls in it or whatever. You have a big traffic accident. Biblical law says you have to put up a yield. You have to, put up tape and cones and let people know there has to be a warning that there's a hole in the middle of the road. That's biblical law. And it's been applied to our society because our society, when it started, went to church. I guess that's the best way you could say it. It's kind of like Life with Father. If you ever watch that movie, it's Life with Father, right? And I'm not saying that uh, I don't want to get into the faith of the people. I'm saying their faith was enough that they went to church, that they knew where the laws came from, that they knew where the success of a society would come from. And all this talk about Haiti. The problem with Haiti, and when you go and look at its ancient structures, its old structures, they're churches, they're star forts cathedrals. And the the problems are when you become lawless, when you start doing the voodoo, when you start killing the animals, when you start becoming cannibals, because people, and I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that on this live stream, but that's a known fact right now. because if you're lawless, your farming goes downhill, the creation goes downhill. I mean, people talk about the difference between the Dominican Republic, the border, and Haiti, and how one side is like brown, destroyed, and the other side is green and flourishing, you know, and people like are, what's going on here? Well, you got one side that's lawless, and the lawlessness shows up in the land. So, and of course they've had the earthquakes and all of that, but you can rally. And when we were in the daycare center, we were helping out with the daycare center, running the daycare center, and I was at the desk, running the desk, um, showing people the facility and, giving the whole spiel and all of that. Um, the Haitians, and this is down in Naples, right? Naples, Florida, uh, became good friends with a Haitian mother. I would consider her my friend. We just hit it off really well, and she warned me. She warned me. She didn't like it that we would have like a themed week about pirates. She said, "Oh no, can't have that. Can't do it. It is so dangerous." Our country where she was coming from was so dangerous. It was so lawless. And she was so happy um, to have that level of safety. She was working very hard. Um, and she was legally in the country. And she taught me a lot. And, I looked into that and I thought, oh my gosh, look at what happens to the land, the buildings, um, the economy. And I think we should think about that because right now in El Paso, and I'm going to connect it to El Paso, when you have these lawless judges, the land suffers. The people suffer. When hundreds of thousands of children, you've got all these judges. We give them everything. We give them everything. They have beautiful lives. They've got reliable income, good income. It's kind of like this Mario Raskin Ortiz. Well, can you live a nice life off of $450,000 a year salary? And these judges have not as much as that, but they have good lives. They're not going to go hungry. They're not going to live in a bad neighborhood. And we pay their salary. The people of this country, of course, we're talking about El Paso County, but I'm talking about in the country as a whole, in whatever district you live in, whatever county you live in, we pay their salary. They work for us. And we expect from them to be blind, to judge according to the law. And that's not what's happening. They're manipulating. They're lawless. And Judge Medrano has created one big mess, and he's allowed it in the Walmart case. He's allowed it, and he hasn't addressed Bill Hicks's violations, John Briggs's violations. He's making backroom deals, political deals with Joe Spencer. Oh yeah, my it doesn't matter. Patrick Crucia, he doesn't matter at all. You know, and there's such hatred, right? And you're like, wait a minute. If there was such hatred, why didn't they quickly judge him? No, they squeeze, they just prolonged the agony. And a lot of money was made. A lot of money was given out. And they've just squeezed it and squeezed it. And all along, Patrick Crusius is sitting in isolation with a severe mental health condition. Was he there while the federal court made the plea deal? We don't know the evidence. The evidence has been sealed by a lawless individual, Penny Hamilton, who Judge Medrano appointed to sit on the magistrate court, so the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, who oversees about 90% of all the cases there. And she was even like the head, what do you call that? The head magistrate um, decider, right? Ruler. But I don't even want to call her the J word because she's not. She's lawless. And she sealed the Walmart case, the evidence, in a case where people are calling out for the death, bury him under the jail, right? And let me tell you, I absolutely understand the grief, the anger, the betrayal. I am not judging that. I'm saying that the judges and the prosecution team and the defense team, they are trained to handle this. And they are trained to, give that swift justice that, can help the families of the victims, you know, uh, feel more at peace. And we have a total failure of that in El Paso. Because it's just one injustice after the next, one bad ruling after the next, one lawless decision after the next, one lawless act after the next. Because it was Judge Medrano who appointed Penny Hamilton to the magistrate court. And that's a real problem because that court has county-wide jurisdiction. It's very powerful. And you've got this clearly unethical individual judge making the decision on who is going to rule over people's lives in El Paso. That is against the Texas Constitution. Thank God. When you have not just a little, very limited jurisdiction, right? If you have a little limited jurisdiction, you can be appointed and for a certain amount of time. But when you have county-wide handling 90% of the criminal cases, those judges according to the Texas Constitution, thank God, have to be elected by the people that they're ruling over. They have to have a restraint. There has to be an oversight. Thank God. Otherwise, it's just chaos. And what happened is that somehow, somewhere, and I think it was like in 2015, um, or you know, they manipulated that it didn't have full jurisdiction so that they could be appointed, and then it got full jurisdiction, and then nobody said anything. Let's not say anything because this is fun, getting in who we want into those bench seats and ruling the way we want them to rule, not according to the law. Make this totally a political court. And what? It's on the border? It's on the border where there's a trafficking, uh, let's just say it's a temptation, big business temptation of criminal trafficking, be it drugs, be it weapons, be it ammunition, be it humans, be it organs. There is El Paso is right there on the border. And what? There is Fort Bliss, more temptation, all this free stuff. It's not free. The American people have to pay for it, but it comes in these tactical move storage units. Just bring in truckloads of ammunition and equipment and weapons and everything into Fort Bliss, and then we could just put it right on another truck and take it over to Mexico and sell it. And oops, we don't know what happened to that. Oh, we'll write it off. We'll doctor the books or whatever. And where are the judges? There is no judges because that court has appointed individuals that have no authority at all. But shh, 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 I'll take my paycheck. Just don't say anything. Is that what's going on? Because they have no authority. So all of those rulings, which Penny Hamilton sealed the case of the evidence in the Walmart case, in the Patrick Crusius death sentence case, death penalty case, because Patrick Crusius was magistrated in front of them, which is, and he didn't even get his Miranda rights. His hands weren't even bagged. His pants were clean. His shoes were clean. His top was clean. And yet he's being accused, and he admits this, but there's no mental health evaluation. There's just a decision, a comment by the federal judge, and we have it confirmed that he has a severe mental health condition and autism on top of that. He has several things. Several things. He's mentally not healthy. And people are, like, well, he admitted to it. Have you ever worked around people that are have a severe mental health condition? I have. They have a very hard time remembering and knowing the difference between reality and what's fantasy. And here he is. They're like, oh, we're going to dress you up in orange. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, oh. you know, we're going to put this bulletproof vest on you. We're going to chain you up. It's a little game we're playing with you. And then they parade him in, and he's just like, okay, whatever. No emotions, no horror looking on his face, no emotions when throughout the whole thing. He's been in isolation for 5 years. Now all the cameras are snapping at him. He's on live stream, televised media, and the judge is allowing that. And then the family members that might not know what's going on behind the scenes, but I know who they are. I know who they're connected. Let me tell you, they connect Richard to the Walmart case. You just have to look them up. And you're like, wow. And, they want closure. Of course, they want closure. This was all orchestrated up to no good. And anybody with half sense will say, I've had enough of this. This is a circus, and I didn't get what was promised to me. And, I need to know. I need to know what happened. And yet, they'll make statements like, bury him under the jail. When the evidence has been sealed, why can't we see the evidence first? It's kind of like with Richard. I'm just, I was really a little bit taken back by this whole thing because there were so many false narratives and false accusations against Richard, and that was their excuse not to look for him, even though it wasn't an excuse, because they knew that he had been murdered, and they already knew that he had been murdered, and they already knew that they had his remains. But they were playing this game, the same MO that they're doing with Patrick Crusius. We just discredit him, and I'm not saying that he's innocent. He's going to spend 1,000 years at the Alcatraz of the Rockies. That's it. He's going to spend 1,000 years there. He's never going to walk free. And by the looks of him, he's pretty young. It's a long time. And so we're not defending him, but what we are defending is our judicial system, the due process of our criminal judicial system. That's what we want defended. We want the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And if you're going to put him 1,000 years in prison, if you're going to get the death penalty for him, then, do not parade him around. Give him a fair jury, present the evidence, and let the jury decide what his penalty is or what the verdict is. And then the judge, but Penny Hamilton is not even, she wasn't even a judge. And guess where she's working right now? She's working for Bill Hicks. She's working for usurper Bill Hicks in the DA's office. What? I mean, that's so crazy. That's really crazy. And we're told that she absolutely is part of Richard's case. But she was just appointed. She was appointed to the wrong thing, and so she was never the thing. It's just like Bill Hicks. He was appointed. He wasn't elected. He's never been elected. He was appointed during recess session, and he couldn't do the thing right. He could not install himself right, and so he's never the thing. He's not, he's a usurper. And think about all the rulings that Penny Hamilton made, and they were all without authority. And right now, those that are on the bench for the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, it's all botched because not one of them is elected. And so not one of them has authority. And it was Judge Medrano who helped with the appointments. Are you telling me he doesn't know the difference between countywide jurisdiction and partial jurisdiction and elected judges and appointed judges and how to install? Are you telling me he doesn't know that you have to sign your statement of officer, your anti-bribery statement before you take your oath of office? Are you telling me that once you are fired from a case, then you don't have authority over representing that case, and you can't come into the judge's chambers and say, "Oh, well, I just want to keep up appearances, make sure that Joe Spencer doesn't know that I've been taken off the case." Are you telling me that Judge Medrano doesn't know better? Uh, and then he just kicks the can, like he doesn't even mention any of this. And he allows, this was another thing, there's so many things that he did wrong. He absolutely looked the other way when Joe Spencer and Bill Hicks went in front of the media and made their comments to the media. That's a double standard because Yvonne Rosales did far less than that. And he slammed her for violating the gag order. And Bill Hicks is, maybe because Bill Hicks is a usurper, right? He's not even really should be part of the case. Same thing with John Briggs. He deceived not only Yvonne Rosales, but Judge Medrano and Joe Spencer. I mean, this is a total, I agree, this is a circus, an insane circus. And they're covering up something. I don't think that the Walmart mass shooting was what they're telling us. Something else happened. And we know that because of Memo Garcia's words. He was like almost a year in the hospital. We know this because of many other witnesses. We know this because of Glendon Oakley Jr. We know that Glendon Oakley Jr. was severely retaliated for speaking to Wolf Blitzer on the day of the Walmart mass shooting because he was in the mall. He was in the Cielo Vista Mall and reported shots there and saw a it seemed he called them mall cops. And, I've been talking to a lot of people about that with M4s, and they're like, oh, that was maybe like an external security group. What security business um, could provide something like that? And M4s are a military weapon. And then with the brown tip and green tip bullets, that's absolutely military and law enforcement. Um, that's not Patrick Crusius. So there's a lot of questions and a lot of evidence that's still out there. But of course, Penny Hamilton illegally, without any authority, sealed that case. And for 5 years, um, the victims, real victims, and family members cannot proceed with their lawsuit against Walmart. 5 years, they're dragging this out. And I don't know, because what I know about Walmart is that they had given money to have extra security there, and they didn't. So I don't know how that's all going to play out. But we need to look at the evidence, right? We need that unsealed. We need this case. I don't see how they can have the October 31st meeting and talk about the wiretapping of Bill Hicks. Um, yeah, that's crazy. Um, I don't, I'm gonna speak to the victims' families and the victims and the victims' families. Uh, they're trying to push this out for a long time. I think was it Bill? No, I think it was Joe Spencer who wanted 2 more years in this. That's that's not quick justice. That's not how our system is supposed to work. And I think it's because the judge is allowing all of this to happen. He's participating in some of it. And the botched cases everywhere. So we'll see what happens. But thank you so much. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. And, um, I don't know if the journalist is going to publish the audios that I've been talking about that we've been made aware of. We'd be very interested in hearing them. That would be some of the evidence, right? That would be some of the evidence. Have they been put in for evidence? I don't know. But we need to get to the evidence because I think that, of course, the truth would come out. And that would be Richard's case, too. Thank you so much. God bless you. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing.